We'll do it. Oh,
And we are live. I forgot the countdown. So
I was gonna do the Bill O'Reilly. We'll do it live.
yeah, we are live. Because Steven forgot to do the little club music countdown. But anyway, it's the Old Souls Football Podcast. We actually, for as much as we make fun of ourselves for not having a big listenership, right? Like we're averaging like 50 views,
Yeah, and if you're watching us tonight, it's because you don't want to watch the All-Star game. So,
yeah,
right, of course. Like the real football fans are watching us tonight.
Yes, I mean, I enjoyed the national anthem last night. That was great.
Did you hear she entered rehab today?
Yeah.
I
don't buy that. I really don't, because like that
doesn't sound like beer or alcohol.
No, and to me, like I sound better if I've had a lot of drink.
I know you do. Yeah, I think I do too. Actually.
Yeah, I think like if I had like 13 or 14 Miller Lights and then got up on the diamond and sang the national anthem,
yeah,
people would start confusing me with Post Malone. Maybe, I don't know. So I think no, but I guess if she has a drinking problem, good for her to go into rehab. But
yeah,
that's all we've got. And somebody went up to me today and they go like, you've been watching the Olympic trials? Like
oh, gee, I forgot that was coming up.
The Olympics are cool. Do not get me wrong. Like they're really cool. The opening ceremony, it brings the world together. I ain't watching track qualifying. I'm sorry. Like, no, I can't do it. I love football too much. But I mean, this weekend we talked about some, there are some sports happening. Like we have the Open Championships coming. There's some things, but not surprising. We're doing a football preview podcast because we like the sport a lot better.
We like football.
Yeah, we do.
I like fried chicken.
But today is AFC West Day. So can't start talking about the AFC West without talking about the team that has dominated this division since
10 years basically now.
Yeah, 2015 is the last year they did not win the AFC West. And that was the year Peyton Manning retired. So it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since Kansas City has been dethroned. And I have a question for you. Like, I don't know if you could classify it as like a hypothetical, but what is more likely? A team that's not Kansas City wins the AFC West, or the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? What's more likely? I think the Chiefs are more likely to just win the Super Bowl than the Broncos, Chargers, or Raiders win the AFC West.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard to see any of the other teams coming out. But I suppose in one way, because I just see the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. I feel like even if the Chiefs had to go through as a wild card, I still think that they'd probably end up winning the Super Bowl anyways. So, but I'll go with the first part. Yeah, I don't see either of them, any of those three teams, beating Kansas City this year. They're last year, I mean, we thought that here's a mediocre Kansas City, or at least a mediocre offense. Great defense for sure, but the offense, they dropped the ball a lot. There was a fair amount of turnovers on offense, if we're being honest.
Yep.
They had some injuries, and even like it wasn't even like they were getting hot at the end of the season. Remember how bad they were on Christmas Day?
Yeah.
They were awful. The Raiders kicked their. Well, I mean, they didn't on the scoreboard. They didn't, but they totally beat the Chiefs down the field.
The Chiefs' offense was broken. I mean, you watched. Yeah, like they struggled to really consistently move the ball, even against the Patriots. They won that game,
Yeah.
But it was ugly. They kind of played ugly football, but to me, what was so impressive about the 2023 Chiefs is that team, like, in a way, like, they won ugly. Like, they find ways to win that are atypical. I feel like no Chiefs Super Bowl team, the 3 that they won, are alike. Like, they're all very different. Like, the 2019 Chiefs were like explosive downfield, like, passing threats.
Yeah.
And like last year, it was a combination of just great defense and like Travis Kelce going nuclear and like just being so good on third down.
Yeah.
And Pacheco kind of coming on. And then last year, they were like a smash mouth team that like played ball control, protected the ball, and played great defense. Like that's the crazy thing about this team is like the best player in the sport plays for this team, and his name's Patrick Mahomes. But like the best unit on this team isn't the offense; it's Spagnuolo's defense. And the one question, I agree with you, and I said at the beginning, like this team, unless Patrick Mahomes goes down due to injury, this team should win the AFC West. Pretty much going away. I think it would take an injury to him to derail that. The question I have is defensively. They did lose, L'Jarius Sneed. Chris Jones is another year older. That could be the one threat. But what's crazy is like when they lost Tyrann Mathieu to free agency, the first thing everybody said was like, well, the secondary is going to take a step back, and they got better. So like with L'Jarius Sneed going to the Titans, like with Spags, I don't really worry about the secondary. To me, this whole unit is going to rely strictly upon Chris Jones and him playing and being healthy and playing hard when it matters. And that's in November, December, and January. And to me, like I expect that. I think this team will start slow like they normally do. Like they'll probably be like 5-2, 6-3, kind of the first half of the season. And we'll luck up in December. They're going to be the 1 or 2 seed. And they're probably going to beat Buffalo and Baltimore again because that's the way this has worked. And Cincinnati can maybe claim that they have the edge, but that took like a fluke, like Mahomes' terrible performance for them to win in overtime.
Yeah.
To me, this team's still the favorite. They're the best team in the league until proven otherwise. Like I think that's a boring take, but I look on paper like they haven't lost enough. And I think what the X factor in this offense, and it's not listed here because this was actually made for the NFL draft, was the addition of Xavier Worthy. I think is going to be such an X factor because the one thing they haven't had in the last 2 years is like a real dynamic deep threat. Like you could maybe try and call McCole Hardman a deep threat, or Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but let's face it, those guys are not that. They're not Tyreek Hill. And I'm not saying that Worthy is Tyreek Hill, but like if they can add an element of verticality to this offense that they didn't have last year, because Rashee Rice is kind of a possession, like intermediate receiver, right? I think if they bring that verticality back to this passing attack, like this team's going to be really hard to beat. They're going to be so good offensively and defensively, and they've always had good special teams units. I think it's one of the most bulletproof teams in the league, up and down roster wise, and then obviously Andy Reid. I think he's probably the best in the business at this point.
Yeah, bar none.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Like any kind of observations about the Chiefs? Like,
no, they just kind of got boring last year, and they do get the job done every Sunday, just about now, or most Sundays, obviously, and then they get the job done, of course, in January and now in February. It's just that Bills playoff game. There was a lot of hype going into that, and every football fan was excited about that. I think that was the week we started the podcast. Right after that, ironically, and I was still buzzing about it because it was the third matchup, I guess, of them meeting or was it only the second matchup?
Yeah, It was
seemed like I guess it was only the second, but it seemed
Which
because
one?
they
The
when they met
Ravens?
last year, the Bills and the Chiefs.
That was their second or their third playoff game because the 2020 AFC title game. The 20
Oh,
everybody
that was the one I was forgetting about. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was 3. I was right.
Yeah, 2021 was the crazy game
yeah.
because you had the Gabe Davis
The
and
13
the
seconds.
13 seconds, and then last year, of course. So that was the third one.
But as that game was going on, it just the most obvious thing it felt like was that Kansas City was going to find a way to win, no matter what.
Yep.
It's
hard to explain. It's just
it is. They're the new Patriots. In fairness,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a common denominator. Just like the Patriots, you have the combination of great coaching and great quarterback play.
Head coach and a Hall of Fame quarterback. Yep.
I mean, you don't have that really anywhere else in the league.
No.
I mean, yeah, you could say like at times, like of course, like John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson at times are great, but they don't consistently like do I don't know. There's just something about the Chiefs, and it took Andy Reid 20 years to figure that part out. Like, remember, he used to be like the big game choker.
Yeah.
But now, like in a big game, I trust this guy more than anyone. So like he's figured it out. Mahomes, it feels like he only wins big games. Like he doesn't. Like he rarely like doesn't perform on the big stage. What's crazy to me is, like I said, I think this team could be better than they were last year, and they won the Super Bowl. And if they are, and they really are probably the favorites, because I think there's some questions with San Francisco and the NFC. I think this team should be the favorite, odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. I mean, we might be looking at the first three-peat in the Super Bowl era, which is just crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So
I think that's gotten to the Super Bowl 3 straight times, right?
Oh, the Bills did, but they lost.
Oh yeah, the Bills, yeah.
But no team that
like how the 49ers in 1990 could have gotten there for the.
Yeah, I don't think a team that won any of them.
Yeah, so nobody who has won twice in a row has got. That's what I should praise for this.
Yeah, I don't think any team besides the Bills in the 90s made it to 3 straight. Which we should do an episode, honestly, on the Bills at some point, like that. Because like that is a special achievement that just gets ignored because they didn't win the big game. But I mean, that's
a good like post Super Bowl episode. I feel like,
and they didn't have the easy road every single year. Like they played in the wild card round.
Yeah,
like, in some of those years, like they had the Oilers comeback game with Frank Wright.
Through Miami one time.
Yeah, so there's. That's that. Yeah, we should definitely do that. But I think Kansas City, it's kind of a boring topic, but I mean, like they went 11-6 last year, which is not. I think this team, like with Xavier Worthy, and I think some of the pieces being healthier on the O-line and on defense, I think this team's probably going to be more like a 12, even a 13 win type team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have them on a high upward trajectory. That they're most of their tough games. I know they get Buffalo on the road, but Buffalo I think is going to be on a downslope a little bit this year. They do get San Francisco on the road, but they get Baltimore at home. They get Cincinnati at home. You know, that's going to help them, especially in terms of playoff seeding. They're going to win a lot of football games this year.
Yeah, and then the last takeaway for people that don't understand how special Mahomes has been since he's become the starter. So since he became the starter in 2018, he has only one season with less than a 90 PFF grade, which is basically just like unheard of. Like he is really like a top 1 to 5 QB in PFF grade every year. Whether he's got the best weapons or no weapon, like the guy's consistently good, and that's what's going to drive the Chiefs' success. As long as he stays healthy, as long as he stays healthy, they need you need to basically pencil the Chiefs into an AFC playoff spot as the AFC West champion. Switching gears to a team that no one is expecting to really make any noise this year, the Denver Broncos. This team, like, we're going to argue about this. I already know. I think we're going to disagree about Denver because I'm going to ask your opinion first. Give me your win total this year for the Broncos.
4 wins.
Okay, that's outrageous. Like, that is – this team nearly made the playoffs.
They weren't good, though.
They nearly made – they nearly went 9-8 with a Russell Wilson that basically everybody is cast off. So, like, I disagree. I think Russell Wilson's still actually pretty good, but I don't think Bo Nix is like a huge step down. I don't think they've really taken any step down at any position necessarily, but they nearly won 9 games. Like, think about it this way. That
they were a bottom 10 team in football in terms of most metrics.
But you have to factor in they lost a game like 70-30. Like,
yeah, but even by weighted DVOA, they were bottom 10 in the NFL. Yeah, and that takes out the early games.
I think they won a lot of games with a lot of injuries, though, and to me, I think a lot of it is coaching, is what I believe in.
Steven, is anybody going to be bad?
I said the Giants.
That's true. You did say the Giants.
The Patriots, I had like 5 wins. We haven't talked about the Raiders yet. They're going to be terrible.
Oh, yeah. It's not looking good for them.
I've said other teams. I said I didn't like the Colts.
Yeah, but you still had them around 8 or 9 wins.
I haven't talked about Minnesota yet. I haven't talked about
the Bears. Seattle. You haven't talked about Seattle. I don't think they're.
Yeah, but the thing is, Neil, like you say that, I don't think there are on paper a lot of bad teams in the league. I think this is one of the deepest leagues.
That's the thing. The teams still have to lose, even if there's not a lot of bad teams on paper. Teams still have to lose.
Yeah, but we're getting to the point now where, okay, the team that doesn't have their quarterback hurt by week 6 is the team. Yeah. So, like, what I'm saying is there's a case to, like, when you say a team wins 4 games, you're basically saying, the Panthers are obvious. We both said they're terrible. Yeah. We don't like the Saints. We really just didn't like the NFC South in general. So, like, I'm not all that optimistic. Yeah. So, like, don't paint me as like super positive. Like, and we've only done half the league.
That's true. Yeah.
So, but with Denver, and I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I think it's outrageous to think that they're a bottom 5 team in the NFL. Like everybody's saying, I actually think Bo Nix was one of the like better college quarterback prospects coming out this year. I don't think he has the high end traits of like Caleb Williams or even Michael Penix, right? I think he's better than JJ McCarthy. I'll be honest there. I've looked more and more at JJ McCarthy. I don't see why he went ahead of Bo Nix in the draft. But with Nix, I think what he's going to do is he's going to run Peyton's offense he's going to execute it well. And that's the one thing you actually have to give. Like when you look at like DVOA and things like that, I understand that Denver team last year, especially defensively, they were not good, especially early on in the season. But what you can make a case for is like in the second half of the season, they started playing a lot better. And I like those teams that they tend to get better in the second half of the season and they transition into the following season.
They had a good November.
They nearly made the playoffs. Like if they don't have this like fluke missed field goal against New England, like Pittsburgh made it. Like they make the playoffs if they just beat the Patriots on that weird like Christmas Eve night. Like they are in.
But
and then
that would be a team we would say they're primed for regression.
Yeah, but the thing is, people are going to say the same thing about like they won't say the same thing about Pittsburgh. This team in Pittsburgh, they're the same. Like, what is the difference between Russell Wilson? Yeah, but people are automatically going to say we're going to do the Pittsburgh episode next week, and we're going to go, oh yeah, they'll probably win 9 games because Mike Tomlin, like he doesn't have losing records, and even though they're a shitty roster and they don't have a lot of talent and they haven't drafted well in years. Well, Mike Tomlin's a good coach. Well, we can say the same thing about Sean Payton. Is this team, do they have any chance of winning the AFC West? No. Like we already said that. The Chiefs are going to run away with this thing. I think this team, range of outcome, 6 wins as a low, 8 to 9 as a high. 9 is if like everything breaks their way like the 2022 Vikings. I don't see this team being a playoff team. But I think the whole argument that this is like one of the league's worst teams is crazy. Like they proved last year that's not the case. They're better coached. They're coached well enough with Peyton. And Vance Joseph is actually a pretty good defensive coordinator, in my opinion. I think they've got enough to just be mediocre. And if that's a compliment, I guess. But I think this team is penciled in as like the 3rd best team in the AFC West. I see this being like I said, like a 6 to 8 win squad. I think they're clearly better than the Raiders, but if you look at Vegas win totals, they're either the same or a lot of people are probably going to bet Vegas over them, which I think is just crazy. I think Bo Nix is like twice the quarterback Gardner Minshew is, and Sean Payton is like 10 times the coach that Antonio Pierce is, but yet I think the logic is reversed. I think people have it backwards. I think Denver is kind of the mediocre team of this division, and Vegas is going to be the crap team. That's my argument. So I don't like Denver. I just don't hate them as much as everyone else.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
What are your thoughts on this team?
No, I just don't. I just don't really, even like back during the draft. I mean, them getting Bo Nix to me was like, okay, so this is going to be a long time, kind of a work in progress here. Yes, they actually, like I said, they did have a good November last year. They won 3 games in a row in November. They didn't have a good December. They lost 4 of 6 games in December.
Well, they benched Wilson like once they were eliminated on Christmas Eve.
Yes,
and they started Jarrett Stidham. So like, are we really going to count that?
Well, yes, but if we're talking all December, like their only 2 wins came against the Chargers, and we're talking like the Broncos quit, the Chargers had quit, and if those are your only 2 wins towards the end of the season, then I don't know if we can call that finishing strong.
Yeah, if you look at the trajectory of that season,
in November, it was great.
Yeah, they lose to Houston on the road by 5. They beat LA. We get it. Like they lose to Detroit. I don't think many teams were going to beat Detroit on prime time with the division on the line, because I think that's the night the Lions won the division. If I'm not mistaken.
They clinched on Christmas Eve.
Okay, so but they had basically like mathematically it was like 99%.
Yeah.
And then the New England game is the Christmas Eve game that like I don't know how many people actually watched that, because it was not.
We did, because it meant something for the Bears.
Yeah, so like. The Broncos should have won the game, but bad special teams. Like, I think was it Chad Ryland hit like a 56-yard field goal, and that was like the only time he hit a 50+. Yeah, but somehow he managed to hit that. Like it was Denver's luck last year at the end of the season. But like I said, if you flip that game and that outcome, the whole narrative behind last year's team, I think so many people are stuck on. And I don't blame them, because the first half of the season counts just as much as the end of the season. I think people look back and they see what Miami did to them.
And I don't. It hasn't even crossed my mind yet what Miami did to them.
I'm talking about public consensus. I'm pulling the Donald Trump here, where I'm saying people say people say that Denver is not good, and I'm telling you they're very good. They're very good, very very good. No, they're
so
not.
good.
They're not.
Some people are saying they're the best.
They do have orange hair. So, yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, so Trump doesn't have. He has blonde hair, but he has like the orange skin, I guess. But we can make Trump jokes, I guess, because
Yeah, if it was 2 millimeters to the right, we wouldn't be able to make Trump jokes.
What a crazy Saturday.
Yeah, a lot has happened since we were last on.
Yeah, and that was a situation. Thank God it did. It worked the way it did.
Could have been worse.
Yeah, we didn't want that.
No,
at all. Yeah, but going back to in seriousness, to football. If you look at the December records here, like Houston close loss, LA okay, I guess you can't give them credit for that, but they still won the game, so we'll count it. Detroit lost, but they were going to lose that regardless. The New England game, if they win that, it flips to a 9-win season. They had a stretch where they won 5 in a row. They beat the Super Bowl champions. I just, like I said, I don't think this team is a bona fide contender, but I don't see this team being the league's worst team, I would say. I think the Raiders probably fit that profile. I think this team's better than Indianapolis, and people are going to think I'm crazy for that. But I think Bo Nix and Sean Payton are probably better coach quarterback combination than Indianapolis has. And some people have Indianapolis contending for a playoff spot. So I don't know. I'm higher on Denver than consensus, obviously, but I don't think I would accuse me of saying, I'm too high. I just think they're mediocre. I don't know what else to say about them. There are some players that I like McLaughlin. I like what they've done offensively with a lot of the moves that they've made. I like what Peyton's going to do, and I think people are underestimating. I think a second-year offense with Sean Payton leading them.
Well, it'll be interesting, regardless.
And the one thing I would argue for Bo Nix in this system is, he was basically like a low ADOT type of quarterback at Oregon. Like, he was 111th in big time throw rate, but he takes care of the ball. He plays within the pocket and he plays within structure. And that's I think it's just the perfect fit. I think sometimes people it's a team building exercise where you fit the quarterback with the coach and the offense that he's going to play in. And this is the perfect place for him. I don't know. I guess we can finish on Denver. I'm just a lot higher than you are.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. Let's see. Who's next? Are we doing Los Angeles to the Raiders?
Whoever you want.
Let's do the Chargers. It's weird. I was about to say, do you want to do San Diego or Oakland? Yeah, I almost did that. I had to correct myself.
Oh God, we're the old Souls podcast. Yeah. That is.
Hey,
it's just not right.
And speaking of the San Diego Chargers, former quarterback Jim Harbaugh is taking over as the head coach.
Nice little transition. Yeah.
Yeah. We've actually talked about Chargers quarterback Jim Harbaugh on a previous episode. But anyway, briefly, yes. That's what this team's about. If you want to talk about the Chargers, it's all about Harbaugh. I think and I want to say, if you look at the 23 Chargers and go back and their failures and their disappointment, I think stems from what Brandon Staley couldn't do, right? I think if this team has success, it's because of what Harbaugh brings from a cultural perspective and what he's going to do offensively, where this team was one of the pass happiest offenses year in and year out under Staley. They had Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator last year. They do the opposite of Kellen Moore, and they bring in Greg Roman. My question to you is, can Harbaugh turn this team around enough to get them back to the playoffs year one?
I think so. I'm a massive Jim Harbaugh fan. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a big Michigan fan. They had a brutal end to the season last year. I mean, the bottom totally fell out. The only win they had after the halfway point was a 6-0 victory against the Patriots. And I think it was like piss and rain in New England that day. It was not a good day for football. It was a bad second half. But, it's bad analysis to say this, but Jim Harbaugh just wins wherever he goes. He took a really, really poor 49ers team. He took Stanford, first of all. He took Stanford and turned them into a BCS team, like the nerdiest school in the country. The nerdiest school on the West Coast, I should say. Turned them into a BCS team. Then he went to the 49ers, who were in the doldrums for years. Immediately brought them to the NFC Championship, and then the Super Bowl, and then back to the NFC Championship. And then they parted ways after him and Balky. They were two alphas in the room. Yeah. I guess that doesn't work. And then he went to Michigan, who were in the doldrums for years. He had a couple good years. The COVID year was nearly over. It nearly ruined everything. He nearly left, but then he didn't nearly leave. He was nearly fired. He instead took a pay cut, decided he's going to shell out some of his money to get better assistants. And he changed the Michigan program around. They had a renaissance in the second half of his tenure there. They went to the playoff 3 times in a row. It ended with the most magical season a Michigan fan would ever ask for last year. I was sad to see him go, but I wasn't. I know there were some Michigan fans that were like, "Come on, really? I thought you were going to stay here forever. You said you were going to." And I was like, "No, he owes us nothing. He did exactly what he came here to do. He won us a national championship. He got us to beat Ohio State a few times. We won a few Big Ten titles, that sort of thing. I'm happy for him. I hope he does well. He's going to do well. I think the Chargers are a team that their schedule's kind of favorable. I think they're going to win 10 games.
Yeah. I mean, I think if there's a team that can go from 6 wins and jump all the way to 10, if there's a guy that has a track record of doing that, I think it's this team. This team has plenty of talent. I mean, Justin Herbert at quarterback, you have talent under center. I think the offensive line was really impressive. I mean, they just added. I mean, I already like Rashawn Slater, but they also add Joe Alt in the draft. Defensively, like this team has always been like full of talent, but like they've underachieved. But I don't see that happening as much under a Harbaugh coach team and with his staff. Just go back and like when I talk about his track record, Michigan means nothing to me. College football is a completely different game. It's so dependent on recruiting, which Jim Harbaugh is great at. And he rebuilt a team in his, and I guess he rebuilt Michigan to fit the mold he wanted. But you can't do it in the same way in the NFL, and you still have to get results almost faster in pro football than you do in college. But like the guy wins by creating a culture, a winning culture behind his team. And look at what San Francisco did in the early 2010s when he got there. They went from pretty much bottom of the barrel in the NFC West for years under Mike Singletary, Mike Nolan, the end of Steve Mariucci. Like they just were not a very well-coached team.
There was one other in there too. Who was the guy? Was it Erickson? Dennis Erickson.
Yeah, you're right. He was after Mariucci, I think.
Yeah, he only did like 2 years, and they fired
him. He did like 1 or 2 years, and then they got Mike Nolan.
Yeah, yes.
Because Mike Nolan was the first coach that had Alex Smith.
Remember, he used to wear a suit.
Yeah, he did, and he first coach he was the coach that like came out when they talk about the 2005 draft They actually said that if Rodgers fell to the second round, that they were going to take Rodgers 201. So, and then they would have a competition between Smith and Aaron Rodgers, which I still have a hard time believing, because back then, like, Smith would have been playing so much more, or been paid so much more, because there was no rookie wage scale. But going back to the Chargers, and so with Harbaugh, like, they went from bottom of the barrel in like 2010. Like, they had Troy Smith playing quarterback. They were like a 6-10 team. First year in San Francisco, 13 wins, NFC title game. And he did it with Alex Smith, Alex Smith was a good quarterback, but I don't think he had the talent that we have seen from Justin Herbert in the first few years of his career. So I am a big believer as well. I think this team, if there's a team that I can lock into the 5 seed in the AFC right now, this is the team. Because the way I look at the AFC North, they're all going to eat away at each other. I think the AFC East, like, it's kind of the same thing. We don't know what we have with the Dolphins. I feel like the Chargers are like that team. I think 10, 11 wins is certainly doable for this club.
Yeah.
Because to me, the way Harbaugh, it's going to bring instant change. This is not a team I would want to play if I had the Chargers on my schedule. Like, I have PTSD a little bit from Jim Harbaugh as a Packers fan, but I've seen it firsthand. Like, his teams play physical. They play with an attitude.
Yeah.
They play for him. The main question that you're going to have to deal with Harbaugh is, does he wear it as welcome with the front office? But that's not a 2024 question. That's a 2026, 2027 question. And this team, I think they're going to go out and kick ass. And like I said, I mean, if Mahomes gets hurt, this team wins like 13 games, possibly. Like, I could see that quick of a turnaround. There's plenty of talent on this roster. Because the only main loss they had were 2 receivers that were often injured anyway. And in my opinion, that's the one thing Harbaugh doesn't really need. He didn't need Keenan Allen or Mike Williams to be super successful to run his offense. Like, this team is going to be a lot run heavier. Aaron Schatz would just be like cringing at everything I'm saying right now. But I don't know. Like, I like the way this team is. I like the way he built this team. And it goes against, I think, what a lot of other teams in the league are doing, which I like. I like when teams, like, zig, or I guess zag. I like when other, like, teams zag when everybody zigs, But I agree with you. I think the Chargers are going to be in a really good spot this year. And last team on the list, this is the worst team in the division, by the way.
Yeah, so that's it, everybody. We'll see you later.
Yeah. This team is the worst, in my opinion. I don't know if everybody agrees, but the Raiders are, I think, if they're, how, like, everybody's been talking about, like, who's going to be, like, the worst team in the league, and people are taking bets on the Giants. People are taking bets on the Panthers. Those are probably terrific bets, to be honest. Patriots are another one. Yeah. But, like, to me, those teams all have, like, arguments for what could go right. Like, in the Giants' case, it's coaching, because we've seen Dayball put together basically chicken salad out of chicken shit 2 years ago. He got a really bad team to the playoffs. So I can respect that. The Panthers angle is, like, the worst coaching job of last year was under Frank Reich, in my opinion. Like, and they have a number 1 overall pick at quarterback. What if he turns it around? You could make that argument. Not that I believe all of that. And then number 3, we talked about the Panthers and the Patriots. You have the Drake May argument. Like, what happens if he's just really good from the start, which is certainly possible. He has the pedigree to do it.
Yeah.
It's not the first time we'd see somebody like him just be a baller from the start, and they're not going to be the worst team in the league if they have the next Justin Herbert on their roster.
Right.
What is there to like about this team? I mean, yeah, they got some names like Devontae Adams. Awesome.
Who doesn't want to be there anymore? It seems like
your best player defensively is an interior defensive lineman. Like, I like Christian Wilkins as a player.
Yeah.
But that's not your identity. Like, and then you have a guy, like, everybody loves Gardner Minshew. He gets wide receivers killed. Like, I've never seen a guy throw so many hospital balls.
And at best, Gardner Minshew is like the 15th best quarterback in the NFL. Like, on a really good Sunday for him,
yeah,
that's about where he is.
Yeah, and I think he had a favorable offensive coordinator, and really, Steichen is a glorified offensive coordinator.
And do you know who their offensive coordinator is this year?
Luke Getsy. We have it up on the screen, and Luke Getsy does not have a track record. His claim to fame was he was Rodgers' quarterback coach. That doesn't mean anything.
Rodgers' buddy.
Yeah, that doesn't mean crap because like you could be Rodgers' offensive coordinator in Green Bay. Nathaniel Hackett did that. He's terrible.
Yeah,
like that. Almost like it's almost to the point where
Joe Philbin was a terrible head coach.
Yeah, if you work as an assistant for the Packers at any point, you're a terrible head coach. Like Ben McAdoo, I think is the only guy I think that had any ability, and I think he got a raw deal in New York. But
he was also kind of a weird dude.
Well, everybody hated him because he was like, I think and we're off topic a little bit, but Ben McAdoo, to defend him for a second, he was like, hey guys, Eli, he's done. He's not good anymore. And the New York media went like, how could you? I remember Mike Francesa like, you can't do that to Eli.
No, like, who is this guy?
The New York media and like the fans, they were so loyal to Eli. But it's weird. Like if that were the Yankees and like, I guess it was like the Derek Jeter effect. It's like, yeah, but he hadn't been like, he's been an average player for 5 years. He's like, Jeter! Like he won you championships 10, and the same thing goes with Eli Manning. Is I think in 2017 he's like, hey, we should draft Patrick Mahomes. Like we should trade up and get Mahomes. And he kept saying that, and like they didn't do it because they wanted to stick with Eli. And the Giants are still dealing with the repercussions of that.
Yeah.
And how many coaches are they on since they had? I guess this is the
guy from New England. They had
Joe Judge. You had
Joe Judge.
Who was the guy? Pat Shurmur.
Pat Shurmur. Yeah.
So they're on
the. I want to say.
Yeah, they were really bad. Because I think Daniel Jones's rookie season was with Pat Shurmur, and then they went to Joe Judge, which was even worse.
Yeah.
And then they went, and now they're on Daboll, and
who we talked about during the Giants episode. We think they're going to run him out of town basically because he has nothing to play with.
I just look at this Raiders team, though. That's the question.
Yeah.
What is there to like? I don't like. Football fans are very simplistic sometimes where they're like, well, they got, these big names. What this team feels like to me is like the mid-2000s Redskins teams that win like 5-11, 4-12.
Yeah.
That's what this team feels like. You're throwing like your answer, to 6 quarterbacks going in the first round is like, well, we got Gardner Minshew.
We're going to draft Brock Bowers, even though we drafted Michael Mayer last year.
The last time we saw Gardner Minshew play with like a relatively poor offensive play caller, or at least not like an elite one, where he had, so I guess he went to Philly after that, after Jacksonville, and then he followed Steichen to the Colts. But like when he was with Jacksonville in 2020, they went 1-15 or 1-16, I guess. I think 1-16. No, in 2020 they still played 7 or 16 games, but they did not have a good season. Like I said, I don't like anything I don't like anything on this team outside of Devontae Adams, who doesn't want to be there. Christian Wilkins is fine. I think this team, and the other thing I don't like is I don't like the vibes from Antonio Pierce. Like he seems disorganized, and he talks about like the Raider way, and like, but the Raider way is not like what Al Davis, like everything he says is like what Al Davis wouldn't do when the Raiders were winning.
Yeah.
I don't like anything about this team. I think this, if I were to actually like look at, if you can make a bet on like who's the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the Raiders would be a choice for I think they would be in play.
Probably get some good odds on it.
Yeah. And Shedeur Sanders. I wonder if Shedeur would be willing to play in.
Well, because it's Vegas now, he might want that.
Yeah. And hey, he could win as many games in Vegas as he wins at Colorado. But any thoughts on the Raiders?
I do kind of like their defense. Well, at least like their front seven. Robert Spillane, fun fact, his last high school game was against me. But anyways, that's my claim to fame with the Raiders.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very.
He's actually a pretty good linebacker too.
He is a very good, and he was a running back back then. But ironically enough, he played for a school that was black and silver.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, but what they need to get,
their offensive line is terrible. Do you remember during the draft we were saying, "Go get a lineman, go get a lineman, go get a lineman."
Yeah. And see, this is like, here's an example of why I don't like Antonio Pierce. Like at least the vibes that I got. I don't know the man personally, so I can't say whether I like him or not. Like, I don't want to go crazy. But he said when they were on the clock that they had to make a decision. I think it was between, I can't remember who the other player was. I think it was like Latu. I think it was like Latu or Brock Bowers, like they were considering. And as we know, like edge rusher is way more valuable than tight end. Like in terms of win-loss, like if you just look at like every metric about the draft, like in terms of value, it's more valuable to have an edge rusher at that point because you can probably find a capable tight end in the 2nd, 3rd round. If you look at all of the best tight ends in the NFL right now, they all come from day 2 anyway. You don't have to use a top 20 pick. But anyway, he said the way they decided is they flipped a coin.
There you go. Great.
Oh, and their answer to their front office vacancy was they hired Tom Telesco, who was with the Chargers. This guy's terrible.
The Raiders are the reason why Tom Telesco got fired because they beat the living snot out of them on Thursday Night Football. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was like 63-10, and the Chargers fired Telesco the next day. And so the Raiders were like, "Oh, do you want to come here?"
And as a recovering Quentin Johnston truther, I'll say this: that after that, like, why would you trust anyone that, like, because when I saw Quentin Johnston play last year for the Chargers, it's like, this guy, like, because at least, like, I didn't have, like, chances to see him practice at his pro day and crap like that. I saw him play, and I'm like, we passed on Jordan Addison for this. Like, we passed.
He's
like,
in trouble right now.
Yeah. And maybe they were concerned about his character or something. We'll get to the Vikings now. That's another team. Like, I cannot wait for the Vikings episode. It is going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Hey, Steven, don't piss off us Minnesotans.
Yeah, they're vicious. I ain't afraid of anybody.
Does Devontae get traded?
I could see that happening mid-season. I think the problem, though, is
I think it might happen before the season.
Well, his contract's so huge.
His contract's, very difficult to move. they'll have to eat 40 million. Excuse me, everybody. I just burped.
Yeah. What
they'll have
teams would make
to eat
sense?
40 million. The Jets.
He's
The
32
Jets
years
almost
old.
should because, like, what else do they have? Like, they have to go all in.
I didn't realize he's already 32.
Do you know what's funny?
That's
We're going to
old.
do, yeah.
For a receiver, yeah.
And,
What were
he had a
saying?
great season last year.
I think he's going to have a statistically a good season this year.
Yeah.
His cap number, so I think they are out. Yeah, so after this year, he's like a cut candidate / trade candidate. But his cap number, like he's going to have to get his contract restructured because next year his cap number balloons to 44 million.
Oh.
So like that's like a quarterback number. And right this year it's at 25. So I mean maybe he could get traded and another team gives him a new deal. But you're giving you're giving an extension to a guy that's 32. Like you're going to give him 4 years. Like you'll be paying him when he's 36. Like how many teams are going to do that? The Jets make sense just because they might be all in anyway. I'm trying to think. Like
those numbers went down after Derek Carr left.
I think the Chiefs would actually make a lot of sense, but they won't do that.
No,
the Raiders wouldn't do that.
Maybe him for Brandon Ayuk straight up.
But see, if you're the 49ers, like we can talk a little bit about because I think we're done with the Raiders a little bit.
Yeah,
like with the Pearsall or with the Ayuk thing. Isn't that why you drafted Pearsall? Like, just move Ayuk. Like, it's not that hard, but you don't need to do it for Adams. Just do it for a first-round pick.
Send him to Buffalo, please.
Yeah, that's the team that makes all the sense because they don't. Keon Coleman could be good, but like, are we really going to rely on that?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to say Pittsburgh. I mean, I think you already have your X receiver there. I think George Pickens is going to be plenty good. Like, I don't see the need.
I hear some people saying, well, I don't know if it's
Washington
people,
it's just Jaden Daniels.
I hear Washington fans saying Washington.
Yeah, because they could get the Commanders have Jaden Daniels, and it's crazy.
I guess they're buddies with each other.
Well, they played with each other in college.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
which is nuts because Brandon Ayuk's like on his second contract, basically. Jaden Daniels hasn't played a snap in the NFL. But yeah, I think Buffalo would make the most sense for Ayuk. But I think the main thing that makes the most sense for Ayuk is staying in San Francisco. Like, I think they need to work.
Yeah,
I think Ayuk is a great player. We'll get into him next week.
Yeah. We'll have some things to talk about with San Francisco.
He doesn't put up the elite numbers that some of these other guys do, but he's like,
but nobody in their offense besides McCaffrey puts up great numbers.
Yeah, but it's like they're a great offense, and
they are. They
distribute the ball everywhere.
They distribute the ball. Yeah, they're like a basketball team where everybody's shooting like 15 points per game.
Yeah, if you look at but see what's going to happen is just teams like the Raiders do this where they trade. Oh, we'll give you a first-round pick for Ayuk. Yeah. And we'll pair him and Devontae.
And neither one of them want to be there.
Yeah, and both of them will put up 1,400 yards, and you'll win 7 games. And that's almost the worst because you win 7 games, and it's like, no, this team needs to win like 2 games. Yeah. They need to just reset it. This team's like, it feels like the Saints in a way. Like, they keep trying to win a bunch. Like, they keep trying to win, and we're just like, why? Let Kansas City just run over you for the next like 3 or 4 years and then build it up. Like, I think the only coach that could come in and like fix this is if they had gotten Harbaugh. But Harbaugh chose the Chargers because
Harbaugh saw that and said no.
Justin Herbert. It's obvious. Yeah. Like there's a universe where the Chargers could beat the Chiefs this year because they have the quarterback that can do it. Right? This team ain't it, man. Like this team feels like that a trap. ironically, they feel a lot like the 2020 Jaguars, like because Minshew was there, and Minshew, like coming off a decent season in 2019. If you take away, if Adams leaves, which we think he might, this team looks barren, and they drafted Bowers, and like that pissed me off because like Mayer was a good player, and they're not even like, how are they going to utilize that? Like, there's so many logical issues with the way this team is run, but it's been like this for 20 years with this team. I can't understand. I never understand any move they make. It's like
it looked like they were figuring it out about 8 years ago when they had Carr pre-injury, even though he still had a very low yards per attempt back then, and Khalil Mack, and then it ironically enough, it was like that Derek Carr injury kind of flipped because like 2017, they had a disappointing season. They couldn't keep Mack. Then the Antonio Brown, John Gruden, that whole thing. Yeah, and then it just all went to hell in a handbasket.
But the worst part for them is they haven't been able to hit the reset. They've been stuck in just a sea of mediocrity.
Yeah.
For the last 6 years. I mean, because and Derek Carr is now doing it to another team in the NFC because he's with the Saints now. But like I said, just rip the Band-Aid off. And but I think this might be the year where the Band-Aid comes off because I don't. And some people are high on Minshew. Like you said, I think he can put up numbers. I think he can win you some games against bad teams. But this division too, because I'm higher on the Broncos than everybody else, apparently. I don't think I could see them getting swept by the rest of the AFC West. So that's 6 losses right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not high on this team. Any last thoughts before we head out?
No, I'm just I'm very excited that teams are reporting the training camp now. We're getting closer. What's our countdown is at? So we do it. Me and Steven have been doing a countdown there where we text each other a picture every day. We've been doing it for years, probably 10 years now.
Yeah.
And we've been pretty good to not like always send the same. It's like very rare that we send the same person year after year or something like that.
I don't keep track. I usually just.
Well, I do kind of. I don't remember who you send, but I remember kind of who I like. Like today, I sent Rashawn Gary, so 52 days. And I never sent Rashawn Gary before, so I know that.
Just imagine Rashawn Gary. Caleb Williams probably is like thinks of Rashawn Gary before he goes to bed every night, just worried about it. Like when he turns off the lights and he thinks like, oh no.
I don't think Caleb Williams has ever heard of Rashawn Gary. That would be my bet.
Yeah,
he did sign his contract today. Mike Florio made a big deal that he wasn't signed yesterday, and then about 12 hours later, he was all signed up. So, Mike Florio, thank you very much for putting that into motion.
My question about rookie contracts and their negotiations is like, what is there really to negotiate? Because isn't the pay pretty much set?
Yeah, there's like some language stuff. Like that's actually, speaking of the devil, Florio would actually be a good person to explain that. Like it's like there's certain like guarantees with like injuries or suspensions or I think maybe the signing bonus can be a little bit. I think that.
So if you go out and like pull a Henry Ruggs or something, like they can.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. Yeah, they're like there are guys that want that protection.
I would.
I would too, in case I did something stupid. There are stupid things. I remember Roquan Smith had a big hold up for certain things like that. But no, I'm just very pumped. Me and Steven, we talk about all the time how much we just need it. We need it back. Well,
but last thing on the Raiders is Like we said, there's teams that everybody thinks that could be the worst team in the NFL. We have the Raiders, the Panthers, the Giants. We have, who was the other one? Oh, the Bears. That's right.